All right.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Andrea De Baat, and we are going to be talking about the hidden or the secret causes of burnout. And I've been looking forward to this. I always look forward to these calls because you hear me say this every time, but it's true every time because I started out as a burnout coach, and my own burnout triggered me ending up in owning my business, starting my business. And this is always a topic that I love talking about. And for a lot of people, they have a certain image when it comes to burnout and a certain thoughts around burnout and its causes and maybe possibly also the way out. And we want to be talking about some surprising things today that you probably haven't thought about before or heard about before. So thank you, Andrea, for being willing to come and talk today and about this topic.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today and to have the opportunity to have this chat together.
Definitely. I always love also that people come from all over the world because even though Andrea, like me, is a Dutch person, which helps in my pronunciation of her name, she is in Bulgaria at the moment, and it's so wonderful to be able to connect to people regardless of their physical location and be able to have these deep talks. So how we talked, or we said that the title of our topic today is going to be the secret causes of burnout, and I am guessing that you are also talking from experience.
Yes, very true. I was working in Germany. It's already a long time ago, to be honest, for a very big corporation. And I was this young blonde girl working in a big international company. It's like the biggest entertainment company after Disney, and managing an attraction. And I was, very much in the mindset of, I can do this. I'm going to prove everybody that I can do this. I'm going to lead the team, even when I'm young, and even, when I'm a foreigner. So that's what I did basically. I worked a lot. I wanted to show everybody, that I could do this. And then, certain hurdles came. People got ill within the team that weren't replaced. A lot of pressure showed up from head office. And yeah, I tried to do it all. And I tried to please everybody and look perfect from the outside. And the pressure rose to a certain level where I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's when I broke down, and I never returned in that company.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely get it. That is very similar to my story, where I was also under a lot of pressure and I was responsible for a lot of things, and I felt responsible for a lot of things. And you want to do a good job and you don't want to let people down. And at the same time, you might not be able to fix certain things that need to be fixed because you don't have a say in it. And this builds up, and we can function under a lot of pressure for a long time without ending up in a burnout. So I'm guessing something else probably happened, because for me it was the unexpected ending of my 7-year relationship with my then boyfriend. That was the final drop in the bucket that made it overflow and made me end up in a burnout. Was there something similar going on for you on top of the pressure that was already?
Yes, definitely. So I had just gotten a new boss to report to, and that boss. So I was a middle manager. So there was a top manager. I was a middle manager managing 3 department managers, and that top manager was getting very friendly with one of my department managers. And that manager was actually doing a very bad job. And that was causing a lot of conflict because she would constantly come into the way. And what we call in Germany, we call it mobbing. I really felt that they were mobbing me. And that came on top of the pressure. So this top manager was actually not on site anymore. She was far away. But it started with small things. My sister was graduating from college. I was overworking already, working on days that normally were my days off, and I wanted one day off to go to graduation, and she told me I couldn't go. Like all these small things
Yes.
start to build up, and I felt like there was no way for me to win that. There was no way to fight against that. So that definitely added as well. And then my own thinking, my own interpretation, because you get into a spiral, when these kind of things happen, that you start to see danger everywhere. It just got worse and worse.
And there are a lot of very important things that you're sharing here in this story, because the way into a burnout for a highly sensitive person, an empath person, an intuitive energy sensing person is very different than from the other 80% of the world that apparently don't see it coming, because usually we do see it coming. We are feeling the symptoms. We are feeling that it's getting worse. We are feeling that we are not as happy anymore. We are noticing that all of a sudden we're working on all our days off, and we are not getting the rest that we need, and maybe our sleep already has been affected, and maybe our tension has been rising in neck and shoulders. It could be we might have digestive issues, stomach problems, or bowel problems, or stool problems, or all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
And so there are a lot of factors that play a role into a highly sensitive or an energy sensitive being ending up in a burnout. And it's not something that happens overnight and that you think, oh, I have no clue where this was coming from. I didn't see it coming, and now it is here. And that's not the way it works for us. It's these little things that you're talking about. It's the little annoyances that are happening, or the little things that seem unfair, like someone is being pulled ahead of you, or they are valuing somebody else more while you are in the same position for longer, or it could be that they feel like they're conniving together and at your expense. It can also be, in my case, my boss loved to throw me under the bus. Every time our client would complain about things in the project that were not running smoothly or not going well, it was always my fault. Even though I had signaled it to my boss multiple times, I had no ability to fix it. He had, and he was not doing it. It was still my fault. And that, that taps into our sense of injustice.
Yeah, I totally agree, definitely. And what you named, Jess, it was very true for me too. I had so many physical issues, but I wasn't really aware of connecting the dot that those physical issues came from that.
Yes.
Probably part of me knew, but I didn't have real knowledge about it because it never happened to me before. So as you said, I also had back problems. I was wearing these belts, from the back pain, and having needle stitches, and digestive problems, as you said, upset, and I couldn't sleep at night, get anxiety, actually looking under my bed, thinking there's something under my bed, like very enhanced anxiety levels. So as you said, like the whole range of problems pop up. And then when you go to the doctors, they treat those specific problems, but nobody looks at you as a whole.
Yes, exactly. And that's the biggest difference in what a doctor does and what I do, and probably you do. I look at people in its entirety. They call it holistic thinking.
Yeah.
And you connect the dots, but that's very difficult when you're in there, because I, of course, noticed I was having more headaches, and I was having more neck tension headaches, and was stiffer back, and my masseuse was talking to me about how tense my back was, and more digestive problems, and eventually I started postponing going to bed on Sunday, because as soon as you went to sleep, the next moment is waking up, and that meant working.
Yeah.
And indeed, you're not connecting the dots with each other. You're signaling these things, and some are not okay, but you look for other things to explain them. You're not aware that all of them are connected, let alone that they're connected to your job. And for me, an additional block, I think, was the way I've been raised. I've been raised with, and you could be similarly raised, is you only call in sick when you absolutely cannot get out of bed anymore. And when you've broken something or have a virus and you're puking all over and then, things like that, that's when you call in sick, not when you just don't want to get up out of bed in the morning. But those are also serious signs that point to you're not doing okay. And that's what the body and the universe do, right? Because when the mind keeps going and going, because we have this huge sense of responsibility and we want to people please and we always want to do our best, so our mind keeps us going and going and going and trying this and maybe that and talking here and talking that and then do this, and we keep on going. And the body is saying, but you're going in the wrong way. And it starts with little symptoms. Maybe you get a headache, or maybe you get, that you're oversleeping, and it becomes increasingly worse. And if you then don't listen to those signs, usually universe steps in, and then you have a car accident. I had a car accident, for instance, that forced me to call in sick, and that's how I avoided a burnout in that moment. But then they fired me and I got a new job, and it went downhill from there. And it all adds up, and it all has to do with not being well enough connected to your body to connect all of the dots, but also lacking knowledge of the proper way of handling the things that you're noticing.
No, I totally agree. I felt very lost and very alone in the process. And also when you are at work and you're leading a team, you can't really talk with other people in the team about what's happening too. So you question yourself a lot. Maybe I'm seeing this the wrong way, maybe my interpretation is wrong. So you're very alone in that situation. Yes. I mean, luckily it didn't take an accident for me. I don't know. I think I remember what happened. What was the last drop? So in the end, I was running this attraction, and there was no manager on site. I was the operations manager. I was running it. I think the restaurant manager had broken his leg, and I was doing his job. And then, the shop manager, and the restaurant manager was pregnant. So I was basically like doing 3 people's jobs. Mm-hmm. And then this company used to have, like some kind of a mystery visitor quality assurance person. Mm-hmm. And they would come and check and unannounced, they would come on site and check if you follow all the procedures, also regards to keys for the safes and all the protocols. Mm-hmm. And then they announced to me that they were going to send this person to help me because I was doing 3 people's job. And I was like, how on earth is that going to be help? Because of course we can't follow all the protocols. Of course, if we don't have supervisors on the team, we can't divide the keys the way we should, and we have to hide them somewhere. Like, we had to do things like in order to get by that just weren't by the rules. And I knew that was just going to mean more pressure and more trouble for me. That's not helping anyway. Mm-hmm. And then I remember calling one of my ex-coworkers, or actually she was a team member of me. She wasn't working there. She had already left because of the toxic atmosphere. And her husband came on the phone and he said, Andrea, you need to get the hell out of there. Like, this is not getting better. You're going to go pack your stuff now, take anything that you need, and we're going to go to the doctor together. And then that's what I did. I packed my stuff up. I called in. I sent an email to head office. I'm sick. And he took me to the doctor, and that's what I needed. And then the doctor said, like, there's no way that you can work. Like, you're...
No. But then you ended the thing better than I did, because I ended up telling the client exactly what I thought about them. Brutally honest. They hung up crying.
Oh my God.
Yes. Because there was, there were so many problems, and I kept trying to fix them, and I had organized a meeting to talk about it for the umpteenth time. And 15 minutes before she was supposed to come and meet me, and it was more than an hour's drive for her to come, she called me and told me she was not coming.
Oh,
So there was again cancellation, last minute cancellation, the umptiest last minute cancellation. And I was already operating here for a long time. And it was just, I snapped. And then I told her exactly what I was thinking, and we can be brutally honest. And our words can be slicing, not because we mean them to be, but because we are so brutally honest. And that ended up with her hanging up the phone, crying, and me going to my manager and saying, "Well, I'm done. This just happened. And I think it's wise that I don't come back and go to see the doctor now."
oh my God. But I think you were brave in letting it out. And I think maybe part of that was healing also, to letting out how you really felt, because I never
Yes.
had the opportunity to do that, to be honest. I left and I never set foot in that company again.
And that's also, if we talk about secret causes, it is also a big part that plays in it are the things that we actually want to be saying, but we're not. And I did say what I wanted to say to the client, but I never got the chance to talk to my manager and tell him what a wuss he was, because
Yeah.
he was supposed to protect me. He was supposed to do things, but we had a director that was blocking his ability to do his job. And he should have found a way to work around it, or to convince the director, or at least protect me. So he was definitely not doing his job. And I also never got the chance to talk to the director and told him what an asshole he was being with his micromanagement, and that he just managed me right into my burnout. Way to go. And you feel all of these things because they put me in a position where I was supposed to be the problem solver. As a project manager, as a scrum master, you're leading the team, you're the bridge between the client and the team. And any and all problems that come up, I should be able to fix. That is my role. But I had no saying. My director didn't give me power of eternity. So I could only signal the problems and talk to other people that had the power to fix things, because that power was not given to me. So
Yeah.
then you feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you're seeing everything going to hell. And I was trying my best to signal it and to talk to people about it and to try and fix it the best way I knew how. And it wasn't enough for the project. It wasn't enough for the team. It wasn't enough for the client. It wasn't enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been like a super difficult situation to be in. I can
Yes.
only imagine, like, you're really trapped between the parties here.
And
Yeah.
then a lot of our factors as sensitive beings come into play. For one part, the people pleasing part. You want to people please the client, you want to people please your team, you want to people please your boss. And usually we forget ourselves in the process of pleasing everybody. That's a big pitfall that we often step into. It's a factor that plays a role. Then the
Yeah.
thing we already talked about, the huge responsibility we feel towards everybody, and to do our best. The perfectionism part plays a role in it. We want to
Yeah.
do the best that we can.
Definitely. Yeah. And for me, what was shocking as well to see is that, you know, after I went to the doctor, and obviously I was referred to a psychologist, that what basically happened there is that they just put you on some type of drugs first to calm you down, and I just slept for weeks. I don't have many memories of it. And then you get some other kind of antidepressant that pushes you up a little bit. But there was absolutely no root cause resolution at the psychologist. There was no, we didn't talk about boundaries. We didn't talk about, you know, where this all came from, like nothing. So you just get released back into the world. You know, eventually you do recover when you're out of that job and that situation, right? But you don't have any tools or any skills to
Or
prevent.
next time, God
Yeah,
forbid.
exactly. And it wasn't until, I'm thinking now, because it's difficult for me to think of the years, but um I would say it wasn't until maybe 9 years later until I discovered that, you know, also my burnout was rooted in my codependency. nobody had ever named before, that nobody ever linked before. That all the patterns I was using, as you just said, like able to be connected to yourself and your body, reading the signals, pleasing others, setting boundaries, the need for external validation, perfectionism, all those things, I absolutely wasn't aware that was happening.
No.
And that's the sad part, because there's so many people that have burnouts, and I'm a member in a lot of burnout groups, and they go to the psychologist, they get prescribed some pills, and some talk therapy, but there's no root cause resolution.
Exactly. That's the why behind why I started my business then, because I discovered that the way in is very different, but the way out is also very different. I refused the drugs because I already knew that was not going to happen, because they're antidepressants and I wasn't depressed. I was just energyless. And when you are completely drained of energy, you also are not in the mood to do fun things. And you can sound depressed, but you're not actually depressed. You're just without energy, completely bone dry, energyless. And that requires a different approach. And in most Western countries, the approach is to treat the symptoms, so that you don't have the deep low, but you also have not any form of high. You're sort of in the middle, and a zombie in the middle. And then you sort of feel better than the low, but you also don't feel good, because that is also no longer possible because of the drugs. And I was also sent to a psychologist, and they wanted to do cognitive behavioral therapy with me. And I discovered that absolutely doesn't work for me, because they wanted me to learn certain lessons or figure out certain things. And I said to her, when she gave me homework, I know exactly what you want me to learn from this. And she was like, yeah, right. And you could see it all over her face. Of course you do. So she said, so what do you think you're supposed to learn from this? And I said, well, this, and this. And she was like, oh, yeah. And I told her, I already know all of that, but it doesn't help. Apparently, it helps for the 80% to figure these things out. And that's where we are different. I already knew all of these things. It wasn't in that area that I needed help. I needed help in better boundary setting, better energy management, better knowledge of myself and how I work. That, for instance, I'm a lot faster than most other people. So the amount of work I do in 8 hours is 3 times as much as what another person does in 8 hours. So I needed to learn how to temper myself, or do everything in 3 hours, and then without feeling guilty, take the other 5 hours off and do something nice for myself to keep everything in balance. Hence the name To Be in Balance. It's about balancing, and all of these things are not what they are teaching you. And it ended up being very expensive sessions with someone who also recognized that she was not able to help me, but it was mandatory from our company doctor.
Yeah, that's very sad. Yeah, I often, like, what I see and what I've learned, there is we're trying to solve the problem on this cognitive level, on the thinking level. And I do think that looking at your thoughts can be very useful. Mm-hmm. But the main problem for people with codependency, and I think also for people that are highly sensitive, is more the connection with the body and the emotional state, being able to manage the emotional state, having tools, because all these feelings and things can be overwhelming, and can be so overwhelming that we maybe just like disconnect from them and try to pretend that they aren't there, and have coping strategies that are actually not helping us.
Yes, exactly. And for me, there were lots of feelings of guilt. I felt guilty for abandoning people, guilty for breaking down, guilty for not being better, doing more, a lot of guilt, but also a lot of disappointment in my bosses, disappointment in the lack of action, the lack of help, the lack of doing anything. So disappointment, anger was also one of the emotions, complete and total emptiness. tiredness beyond anything I'd ever experienced. I think in the beginning, when I finally admitted to myself I was in a burnout and allowed myself to be in a burnout, because I didn't in the beginning. I fought it with tooth and nail. I didn't want to be in the burnout. But when I finally allowed it to manifest itself completely, I slept 16 to 18 hours a day. And then I got up, I showered, I got dressed, and I was so tired I wanted to go back to bed again.
Yeah. Yeah, it all comes out, right? Because it's been suppressed for so long, and then it has the opportunity to come out. And you named like all these emotions, which I went through as well. And I would like to add one that is, you know, basically at the root cause of codependency as well. And that is shame, because my parents always had high expectation of me. You know, my father didn't think I was gonna, you know, finish my MBA. You know, that's a very difficult and economic study. I'm not sure that you're up to it. And I did.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I always wanted to prove myself. So this was my first managing role in a big organization. So for me, like giving up or leaving, or even saying that it was too much to handle, was highly connected to shame, because I would have to admit that, you know, it didn't work out the way I wanted.
That is a very good addition, a very important one, because that comes from how important we find it when we haven't learned it differently, what other people think about us and what other people say about us. That is so important. And that comes from this sense, I think, of wanting to belong, wanting to fit in, wanting to be a part of it. And if you want to fit in, if you want to belong because you're not feeling that, because you feel weird or strange or very different from other people, then you find it very important how they see you. Because and what they say about you, what they think about you, because that sort of determines if you're in or out.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I felt that even more because I was a foreigner. First of all, I was working in Germany. I'm Dutch. And I was young, and you know, and there were a lot of men working in supervisor roles there too. You know, it was my first. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of that feeling of, you know, what people think about me, will they respect me, how do they see me?
Yes.
It definitely played into it. And then another thing that also was related to my codependency that I wasn't aware of, that it's very difficult for people for codependency to ask for help. So I could have asked for help earlier in head office and said specifically, you know, I'm doing two people's job, I need help, I need this type of help, or I need help in this form, which I didn't, because asking for help was for me the equivalence of being weak, you know. Like I thought I had to, I thought I had to do it on my own and have to deal with it, you know, had to deal with it myself. So that definitely wasn't helpful on my part either.
No, but that also ties into what people think about you, because if you are asking for help and they perceive you as weak, then they think you are a weak person, or that you are not up to the job, or that you're not up for the promotion, or any types of thoughts in that type of direction. And what I've seen, because I've experienced this myself in the past as well, is that it's also often connected to a parent that is telling you things about yourself that are not feeling congruent. My dad told me that I would never amount to much, and that my brother was a lot smarter, and that the only hope for me was to go to the red light district in Amsterdam. And for those people who do not know what that means, it's basically my dad telling me that my future would be a hooker. And that's very disempowering. And when you hear that from a parent, especially when it starts at a young age, or it's similar things. I've also had clients that were told that they were fat and unattractive and ugly and not smart. All of these things and similar things, they undermine the value that we see in ourselves, and they feed that monster that is so dependent on what other people think, the outside approval, because you have learned that there is nothing to insidely approve about or approve on.
Yes.
Yeah, and
yeah, a lot of learnings definitely came out, I think, for the both of us, right? Experiencing this.
yes, exactly. And that's why we've also called it the secret causes of a burnout, because most people think, oh, you worked too much. Yeah? And a
Exactly.
common misconception is, there are a couple of common misconceptions. This is also a great topic. One of the misconceptions I heard was, well, just take a 3-week vacation and you will be there again, right? Everything's fixed and you're yourself again. No, a true burnout is not fixed by 3 weeks of vacation. It took me 2 years to get out of the burnout. So 3 weeks of vacation does not work. Another misconception that I often hear is, oh yeah, but everybody gets highly sensitive when they are stressed. No, that is also not true, because high sensitivity is a character trait that is inherited from one or more of your parents. So it's determined in your DNA, and you either are highly sensitive or you are not, based on your genes. And it is not something that you can get from being stressed. Do you know more misconceptions?
I'm thinking, I think that a lot of people also think that only people with very high demanding jobs can get burnout, managers, very responsible jobs. Whereas I think generally women that tend to have weak boundaries and pleasing behavior and maybe so low self-esteem might not even be in these type of jobs, because they might not see themselves up to that. So I think there is a lot of people that also experience burnout in jobs that are maybe not very stressful and maybe not very responsible, but they just don't have the ability to say no, the ability to set those clear boundaries, the ability to deal with conflict in a constructive way. And things pile up over time. They do things that maybe they don't want to be doing. The resentment builds up. The relation starts to be more toxic and complicated. So I think also that is a misconception. You don't have to have a highly stressful manager job to get into a burnout.
No, correct. And you're now talking about women, but this also goes for men. I've also had a lot of men come to ending up in a similar situation. So it's for both. And another misconception I've seen, and that's more on the employer's side, is that they find that when you've had a burnout, you're sort of like damaged goods, and they need to get rid of you as soon as possible because you're not in the best interest of the company. And that is also a misconception, because the people that end up in a burnout are the people that have heart for the business. They are the people that care about their jobs, that care about their coworkers, that care about the clients, that care about if the business does well. They are also the people that will signal when problems come so that you can quickly solve them instead of having them fester until it's too late. They're also the people that have an eye for detail and that can come up with creative, out of the box types of solutions that other people don't have the capacity to even think of. So they are extremely important to your business because they have heart and soul for your business. They just need to learn how to manage their selves, their boundaries, their limits, their energy in a different way as to not burn up. But I say you should keep the people with the burnout, because the ones that never end up in a burnout are usually the ones that already have their computers turned off and their jacket on 5 minutes to 5 and are in the car exactly at 5 o'clock to go home, close the door, and never think about the business again until the next morning.
No, I definitely agree that the people that often end up in a burnout are the ones that, they really see the business as their business too. They really want the best possible outcome for the company, and they give their heart and soul to the cause of the company. And it definitely, I needed to learn also to step a little bit back from that, like this identifying myself completely with the company in order to not let overtake the worry, as you said, like on the weekends or in the evening, still thinking about problems that are going on in the company. But these are definitely people that are very loyal, that will definitely speak up when things are going wrong and are committed to make things better. So I think they're a super valuable asset in the company. And as soon as they learn those skills, you know, how to deal with those things, I think they're going to be one of your best employees.
Agreed. My mother would always tell me, you should leave your work at work. And I thought, don't you think I want to? Right? Because like what you were saying, I took work home with me. I kept thinking about the problems, and that is also one of the characteristics of codependency, but also high sensitivity, is we keep mulling things over. And we do that in the evening. We definitely do that while we're sleeping. We process everything while sleeping. This will make you feel tired when you wake up in the morning because you're so actively overthinking everything while sleeping. And that also takes a toll on your body. And that the more tired you get, the worse you're going to sleep, the worse you will function, and the worse you will get at setting healthy boundaries, and your energy becomes depleted, and it's sort of like a downward spiral from there. And so I think it's very important that we talk about these things. And I would love to know from you, viewer, listener, watcher, what was the one thing that really stood out for you in our talk up until now? What was something that was eye-opening or insightful giving, or something that you just thought, wow, this was the thing I really needed to hear. Thank you for talking about it. Because I'd love to know what resonated with you the most. And it would mean a lot to me if you could share it below the video in a comment. And we have talked so far about causes of burnout, and how we can end up, and sideways a little bit about how conventional help is not working. So now, before our time is up, I would like to dive a little bit into the area of what actually does help to get out of your burnout, because a lot of you, I can imagine, are also wondering, oh yes, I recognize it, but what now? And what Andrea also said, it starts with boundary setting. And for me, it starts even before that. It starts with getting to know yourself really well, knowing the ins and outs of your user manual is what I call it, knowing how you work, what triggers you, what relaxes you, know everything about yourself that you can, because that will help in determining your boundaries. And that will also help in your ability to stand and guard your boundaries.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Like boundaries is definitely a huge topic, and a very important skill to learn when you start to work with this and to overcome this. And I think another place where I would also start is to look at this external need for validation. So, because often we do all these things because we are craving the external validation. So when we can understand where that comes from, and if we can give that validation to ourselves, and we can remove the need for external validation, we don't have that need to work so hard and to over deliver and
exactly
overachieve.
So there are multiple parts that play a role. On the one hand, of course, you have the physical complaints that need to be addressed. But on the other hand, you also want to know exactly how you ended up in your burnout, so that in the future you can make different choices. And becoming aware of your motives, because this is talking about motives, your motives for doing things, is a very important thing, because then you can indeed see, am I doing this for the right reasons? Or am I doing this to people please? Or am I doing this because I don't want to show people that I am not up to it, or that it's asking too much of me? Or am I doing this because my dad already told me I would never amount to much, and if I say that I'm over my head, then he will be right? And there are and these are only a couple of examples. There are lots of reasons for your motivations, for your reasons of doing things, and you need to figure out what they are so that you can become aware of it. It starts with awareness, and when there's awareness, then there's chance of healing, or chance of dissolving, or chances of making different conscious choices instead of firing an autopilot program that does not end you in the place where you want to end up in at the end.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. And I think a very simple way also to get started with this is to find out like what type of activity grounds you, or how you are, like what works best for you in dealing with anxiety and stress. Because a lot of people, they wake up in the morning and they immediately start to be reactive, right? They wake up and they immediately grab their phone and they start to be in reaction to the outside world, either their partner, their children, whatever. And a lot of people don't take the time to have, the first 10 minutes of the day or the first 15 minutes of the day to themselves to actually fill up their inner battery. But they start giving from that battery, even that it's empty. And of course, then you're going to snap, then you're not going to react the way you normally would. Like that's not a sustainable way of running the battery of your day, right? You need to fill it up in the morning, so there's actually something to give to others and to your workplace.
Absolutely. And of course, you can do this by yourself. You can search Google and you can find all the tips that are out there, and you can read books and you can try stuff out, and you will eventually find the things that work for you. But if you want a better plan, or if you want a quicker way of getting out of your burnout, preventing another one, or if you've tried I can do it myself route multiple times and you're already on your third or your fourth burnout, then you might want to consider reaching out and asking someone for help. Because as a helper, we can help you see the things that you are not seeing for yourself. We can hold up this mirror. We can also give you valuable tips. We can give you exercises. We can give you tools that will help you be more comfortable in your skin and better prepared for the things in the outside world, and help you manage your inner world at the same time, which will greatly benefit being yes or no in a burnout. And that's part of what I do. It's part of what Andrea does. You can find me on all the well-known links below this video. But Andrea, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
I think you will drop a link also below the video, right? So my company is called Unchained Connection, and I also have like a small gift for the people listening to this. It's a free guide called 60 Ways to Say No. That might be useful and helpful too, to start practicing those no's. And I think we can drop the link below and people can easily find it.
Definitely. I love it, because saying no is also one of the pitfalls that we have, because we don't want to disappoint people, or what will people think if I say no? And these are just a couple of reasons. So I'm loving that you're giving away 60 ways to say no. And indeed, Andrea's right. I will make sure that her links are also below this video, probably maybe to the side or above, but definitely around here somewhere. It depends on which platform you're catching this on. And again, like I said before, I would love to hear your biggest insight of today's talk. And I would also love it if you could like and share this episode with the people that you know, because there you have people in your network that are facing these types of issues, and they need to hear that they're not alone and that there is a way out, and you would be doing them a really great service by sharing this episode. So thank you, watcher, viewer, for your comments, your likes, and your shares. And thank you, Andrea, for being here today and talking about this very important topic. I loved our talk today.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for inviting me, and I enjoyed it very much too.
Awesome. So see you all again next week with a different guest and a different topic. And for right now, I'm wishing you an amazing day and talk to you again soon.